It's crazy how I'm always right and continue to understand Pokemon Unite better than anyone else. So we just got an update for Pokemon Unite that is not your standard balance patch. Instead of getting Pokemon changes, we got map changes because the Theia Sky Ruins sucked. Now, will it still suck after this? I don't know, but it seems like they fixed a good amount of problems. I still think the map is incredibly flawed, and all they needed to do was take Remote Stadium, remove Zapdos, insert Rayquaza, boom, GG easy. I think that's all the problems in Pokemon Unite fixed, except for not splitting 5 stacks and solo duo queue on the ladder and the leaderboards. And that was the big problem with Theia Sky Ruins, is that the map was clearly designed for 5 stacks, and that is one of the problems that is being fixed. Added a Citrus Berry to the top path. So, Theia Sky Ruins before, 1 Citrus Berry top, a lot of shenanigans with the Natus, which are also being removed. So, the map was made to go 1-1-3, but that's only going to happen in coordinated play, which is going to be 5 stacks, so it makes solo queue even more unplayable. And it seems like maybe the devs were trying to like nudge the player base in that direction, like, hey, there's only 1 Citrus Berry here, you know, tens of thousands of people watch Worlds. It should add up that, you know, everyone will just understand that this is how you're supposed to play. The problem is, the Pokemon Unite community, the Pokemon community in general, is just stupid. The player base is awful. You can't find any critical thinking skills or common sense. Which is why there's a lot of people out there watching other content creators. They don't care about getting better at the game or improving their game sense. I don't know what they want. The Pokemon Unite player base is so terrible that after over a year on the old map, they still couldn't understand it. There's only 3 rules to Remote Stadium, and players struggled. Rotate to first Dreadnought, don't push into second goals because that's an int, and be at Zapdos pit before 2 minutes so you can get tempo. And 90% of players couldn't even do that. So now you're introducing very high level coordinated team strategy and then expecting that to happen in solo. No, that just doesn't work. So adding a Citrus Berry, okay, 2-1-2, that's going to be a thing again. And then removing the Natus. This was another weird thing because score stacking meta was not healthy for the game, especially, and I broke this down in my video on why the Theia Sky Ruins sucked. The reason why Theia sucks is because it just enforced everything wrong with the player base, everything wrong with the game, and the worst of Pokemon Unite strategy. I already talked about why this is objectively the worst design choice possible for Pokemon Unite in my other video, but now it's been replaced with Bunnelbees, similar to the Remote Stadium Apoms. Why get rid of Remote Stadium if you're just going to regress to it? Here's just a nice little thing. Regieleki can no longer hit a player with all 3 Electro Webs doing massive damage. Regieleki still hurts though. Bruh, I got nuked out by that because I did not understand what happened. Because like, yeah, sometimes it's just optimal to be inside the Pokemon, especially on a melee character. So that's a thing. However, there's also been a couple of other changes. Central area Baltoy spawn pushed back to 840 from 910. Once again, going back to the superior Remote Stadium spawning mechanics. Now, I also feel like Remote Stadium did need bees spawning, similar to how the Altaria spawn in center. So again, like, you had the winning formula, but now there's just nonsense scattered about the map for seemingly no reason, making it too busy, making it harder to play, and also just kind of, again, creating less engagement with the enemies in very weird ways. Just cluttering the map for no reason whatsoever. Now, the reason why this is good is because junglers, again, suck because the player base sucks. This made it to where less junglers were ganking and they were just kind of getting lost farming and putting their entire team behind and then missing proper experience rotations and camp clears and stuff, and the game just got ugly. Also, purple buff was overpowered at 20% cooldown reduction, and dialing back to 10% just makes sense. I also did not fully get my gripes out with the last patch, so they nerfed Mr. Mime, because Mr. Mime was S tier before they did the rework, and then it became double S triple plus tier, and even after this nerf, still the best character in the game, besides Hoopa in coordinated play. So yeah, like less healing per tick, But I mean, Mr. Mime was still ridiculous with any amount of healing per tick and was also just a crazy Pokemon. But when they did this change to Power Swap, they didn't change Power Swap Plus, which is bugged and doesn't stun with Confusion anymore. Now, Power Swap plus Confusion did stun, so people are like, oh no, you didn't realize that they changed it to Power Swap from Guard Swap. That's why it doesn't stun. No, Confusion Power Swap stuns. It's only when you upgraded that stops stunning. That wasn't fixed. It seems like there were bug fixes with this, but I haven't seen anything on like the specific bug fixes, and I haven't heard about Mr. Mime getting fixed. So yeah, like the best moveset, which is Confusion Power Swap, has been bugged and not really that playable, so Psychic's been played, but then Mr. Mime is overtuned because it was already one of the strongest Pokemon in the game before the buff. Player base sucks, doesn't understand the game, and now the devs just like find more and more ways to frustrate me, where it's like, oh, so you hotfix Pokemon, but you don't fix the game-breaking bug behind it. Why? Despite having a beta test realm, you make a new map and then just launch it in a disgustingly unplayable state, and then change it to where it's like, oh yeah, maybe 113 on this player base and forcing 5 stacks wasn't the way to go. Who would have seen that coming? Now, this wasn't the only thing. There was also an introduction of new Pokemon with Dodrio. I haven't played it. I don't care to play it. Pokemon also, apparently, it's kind of weird anyways. Even with the Theia changes and seemingly making the game more playable, I'm not really interested in Pokemon Unite. I don't know what will make me interested. Clefable's interesting. I might do just like what I've been doing for the last couple patches, is play like 2 or 3 days, be like, oh, that was fun, and then not really care about the game. If they split the queue, I feel like it's too little too late at this point. But let's talk about Dodrio and the overall impact. Also, going back to the whole map thing, this is like the Dodrio Release mega thread, and it seems like even in my absence of the game, I'm right to not care about it, and nothing's changed. Stop center laning if you farm all day, never gank, and ignore objectives. Nobody cares who you play either. Help or don't center lane because you have no idea what you're doing. Nobody cares if you're level 15 at the 4-minute mark when the enemy team got 3 Regielekis and all of our goals, but you scored 100 points when they took Rayquaza and then ended the match with 0 kills, 0 assists. Now that's over-exaggerating, but still the same thing, where it's like, yeah, the greedy jungles that don't gank and just power farm and ignore like the important objectives, just because you're the highest level on your team doesn't mean you actually played good. Just because you scored more points and got MVP doesn't mean you were actually playing well. It's a team-based game, and even more so than League of Legends. At least a fed Trendemir can backdoor and solo take the Nexus in a scuffed game, but you can't do that in Pokemon Unite. You need to score as a team, because one person isn't going to be able to score the 600 that's going to happen after Zapdos and Regieleki. Like I said, players struggled with Remote Stadium, and then they made it more complicated for no reason with Theia Sky Ruins, and that's just making everything worse in all levels of play. There's still like 5 teams that don't understand it and they're trash, but they have a higher win rate because they're getting floated by 5s. And even high-rank master tier players, they're still trash greed farmers that are just throwing the entire game. As for Dodrio, a lot of people are saying that Dodrio feels pretty underwhelming for a new Pokemon release, and just compared to the other OP Pokemon in the roster, this is a pretty comprehensive breakdown, so play with him for a bit. Really freaking good, but not in the typical OP press buttons and watch explosions type of way, more in a Lucario, still OP kind of way. So it seems like a very high skill Pokemon, but even then, like some high skill cat Pokemon, even by expressing that skill ceiling, still aren't like that crazy Pokemon. Extremely fragile. Like Mew is tankier fragile. Jesus. But his moveset allows you to completely dictate terms of engagement, allowing you to just roam on the match and swoop into engagements, pick off weak targets. Here's the problem Pokemon Unite. It's not a backdoory kind of swoop in kind of game. Absol really showcases that you don't really get to have some kind of fantasy in the late game where you Giga assassinate someone, make it a 5v4, and then turn the tides. No, you just kind of int. And that's it, because there's so much else going on in the fight that you just get absorbed by the enemy team. It's pretty fun, unique playstyle, welcome addition to the Unite roster. I can see that. Also gives Pikachu new purpose as a hard counter. Electroweb is your worst nightmare on Dodrio. Also, Wigglytuff is a hard counter as well, because you just ruin them on Cute Charm, and you can like roll out and shenanigans. Also, side note I had while editing the video, Greedent still seems like a much better Pokemon because it can get away with the backdoor, and then it has one of the best objective steals in the game. So yeah, it can grief a bit, but there's still a chance it just appears on like Rayquaza, Zapdos, whatever, and then steals it with its Unite move. Also, clarifying more on Absol, that Absol's best role right now is to just, try to get the crazy quick Unite, secure, or take on one of the objectives. It doesn't want to be going for assassinations or team fighting. It just wants to cheese objectives, taking it faster than anyone can ever expect. So even like the intended roles of the Pokemon are getting flipped around in these kinds of playstyles. Maybe there'll be an emerging Dodrio playstyle. Probably not. So far, the most fun I've had is running Attack, Weight, Cookie, and Floatstone, Max Yellow. So yeah, with Dodrio's passive, it really seemed like, oh man, there might be the only Pokemon that can try to force the backdooring kind of style in Pokemon Unite that isn't otherwise viable, especially if you get as many yellows as possible, Floatstone, movement speed, and some other stuff. I honestly doubt this is the best setup, but it's nice that the fastest member of the roster isn't Greedent anymore. Now, the problem with Dodrio is that it's a very clunky Pokemon, that you don't aim your abilities, you just cast them where you're facing. So, especially if you're like super running around and getting like your speedy passive on, it makes it kind of awkward to play the Pokemon, and I feel like that also isn't something that's going to get better with skill development, where it's like, oh yeah, I hit the ceiling on the Pokemon, I can like perfectly wiggle around on this character and land everything I need to. No, it's just one of those things where the Pokemon's clunkiness, I think, is just going to hold it back regardless, but it does still have like an interesting niche playstyle. So it also makes it really hard to clear camps until you get your full kit and a few levels, leaving him in a weird King of Roamer spot, but not the best use of a jungle spot. Best spot for him is bottom lane, focusing on harassing enemy jungle, scoring, and then rotating lanes, kind of like Hoopa with the covering of jungle areas. And I feel like it's one of those things that, like, invading, not really that great in this game. Roaming can have some power, but, like, it could just be one of those things where it's like, yeah, ignore Dodrio and win the game. Or maybe Dodrio is such a hyper roamer, hyper ganker that it does it more effectively than Greedent, and with all the resources on the new map and just the brokenness of the game, it finds more success and maybe creates its own playstyle. Or maybe it's still Regieleki is king, you still want to pick up the other Regis, backdooring doesn't matter, this thing's too frail to have any impact in a fight, so if you're just going up against a principled team, playing proper Pokemon Unite, it's not Dodrio's game. Main problem with Dodrio, it's a one-trick pony. Even right now when people are figuring out how to deal with him or play against him, very delicate song and dance playing with him. Thing is, he's entirely reliant on the enemy not actually getting off an attack. And that is like what I've seen people talk about. It's like, yeah, it is kind of crazy how you can just hit and run, hit and run, hit and run, and have very little counterplay and like your crazy speediness. Sounds weird, but that's how he plays. However, as a result of that, he is a not high damaging speedster Pokemon. So for a speedster, you're not coming in and nuking someone like Talonflame, Zeraora, Gengar, Absol. You're just kind of like a mosquito. You're Tracer. You're Tracer from Overwatch, where you get in and you're like a little mosquito that eventually adds up and turns into something powerful, but for a while it's a mild annoyance and impossible to get a hold of. You drill peck, kick away, then circle around for another drive-by. I can see him getting completely trivialized, or I can see issues in high levels of play, but I'm leaning towards the former, between Mew and Pikachu being good picks and good counters. So yeah, Electro Ball Mew pickup might actually be a thing, and then like quick swapping into Solar Beam to like secure and re-team fight after you've dealt with the Dodrio. But yeah, if this thing gets locked down by any CC, or just picked off by like a stray Hurricane or crowd control move, I wonder how much of a counter Delphox is, because the Fire Spin isn't going to like outrun a Dodrio, but it's going to create such a zone and like off-tempo Dodrio's movement so much that might have something going on. But again, also like Dodrio just gets picked by anything and it's instantly dead. So it seems like one of those things where counterplay against Dodrio is going to be developed stronger and better than the actual skill expression of Dodrio, and that's going to create problems. But it's also probably one of those Pokemon where if you buff it anymore, you give it too much damage, then it's the best uncounterable Pokemon in the game. So it just needs to be in a kind of bad spot because of what it does, and again, backdooring is too weird to be reliable in Pokemon Unite, even on the new map. How do you fix him? Give him too much, he'll break the game in a hurry. Can't give him any more attack power since he seems like he's in the right spot right now in the hit and run. So slowing him down will feel like robbing him of the identity. Pokemon's a mess because the game is a mess. Also, for clarity, Dodrio's mini scores do not proc attack weight. You need to get the full score to get a score item. This was different in the beta, so people had a different impression of how Dodrio played. Since, like, it splits it and then scores it individually, you need to do the full score like everyone else to get your score stacking. In the beta, it actually happened on each of the little scores, so that was broken. It's an incredibly difficult Pokemon to deal with in regards to scoring. So yeah, he's going to, like, run around the map and he's going to, like, get some points off, but backdooring is always griefing and trolling. And depending on, like, how Dodrio goes, eventually it's going to run out of points to score, and it can only score so many at a time by, like, clearing out the map and stuff. So yeah, it's in a weird spot, it seems. The map's in a weird spot. Mr. Mime may or may not be broken. I haven't seen any clarity on if they fixed that. And there wasn't any Pokemon-specific balance, so yeah. Pokemon Unite's weird, but I'm keeping you guys in the loop because I'm always right. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.